just that historical link with someone who really was there quietly in the background, but for all those years and from the sort of the real start of growth with Agape Lodge through the sort of slow decline under Gurma, and then just at the very end when Grady McMurtry was starting to pick things up again. So that's probably the real joy to it.
Well, fantastic. I really appreciate you being on the show and talking about Ray and the books that have come up for sale. I will put a link on the show notes for people who want to take a look at the catalog, and there are pictures of each of the books. So even though they may be out of someone's price range, I know they're out of mine. But,
yeah, well, and mine. Believe me, if I had my way, I'd be keeping them all. So I could say that with absolute honesty. So yes, but it's nice to at least have a look at them. I also should just say, if I may, while I think of it, you mentioned the Solar Lodge, and one very exciting thing that I've just become aware of is that Martin Starr's written an essay on the Solar Lodge, which is going to appear in an academic journal called Pomegranate in the May issue. And to my mind, I think a lot of people have the Solar Lodge has always been an enigma. There's been a lot of things written about it, a lot of ill-informed, misinformed, whatever. The truth's never come out about what exactly, who they were, where they came from, all that type of thing. Now, if anyone knows it or at least can make a positive contribution towards it, that would be Martin. So, and as I said, in his own strange way, Ray Burlingame played an important part in that. So that may well be something your listeners will be interested in, might want to watch out for, and I'll happily give you some more information about that when the time comes where they can find that journal and such like.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for being on the show, and maybe when the next catalog comes out and there's another interesting collection of books, you can come back on the show and tell us about it.
Be my pleasure.
Thanks again. 93.
Thanks, John. 93. Bye.
I want to thank Keith Richmond for being on the podcast again. I really appreciate him taking the time. The books are really, really fascinating to look at. I had not seen a lot of the first edition books, and so if you go to the link on the Thelema Coast to Coast website that goes to the Weiser catalog, it's got a picture of each of the books, the spine, the front, and so forth. It's really fascinating to see what each of the first editions look like. So now we're going to go to the interview with Keith 418. Keith and I are going to talk about mentoring, and Keith is going to be answering particular questions given by a listener.
Keith, welcome back to the podcast, 93.
93, John. Thanks for having me.
Earlier, I read some feedback from some listeners, and they were talking about some of the practical aspects of magic, and I gave some responses. But there was one listener feedback that I wanted to read directly to you and get your response, as I think you're probably better suited to give some comments. It's from Scott in California. He says, "Dear John, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I'm a great fan of the show. I have listened to all the podcasts so far and eagerly await new ones. Your excellent interviews and great lectures are at once entertaining and informative. Thank you for being such a vital and relevant resource for the Thelema community. I had an opportunity to experience the Gnostic Mass for the first time at Therion Babylon Encampment, OTO, and I was also able to meet Keith 418 there. He is an interesting fellow with much to say. I was moved by the beauty and power of the ritual. I was surprised with how much I resonated with the celebration of the Mass. I am, however, looking for a teacher that can help guide me through some beginning work. In Liber E, Crowley states, during the whole of this elementary study and practice, he will do wisely to seek out and attach himself to a master, one competent to correct him and advise him, nor should he be discouraged by the difficulty for finding such a person. I would greatly appreciate any information about where to look for teachers and how to evaluate their worthiness. I'm already aware of the potential benefits of joining the OTO insofar as broadening my ability to accomplish this goal of finding a teacher, so other resources would be useful. Thank you for your consideration in this matter, and I look forward to listening to your podcast for for some time to come. Love is the law, love under will. Scott, what are your thoughts about finding a teacher and attaching to them and determining whether they're competent to correct them and advise them?
Well, I think it's interesting to go back and look at what Crowley himself had to say about this. And I think it's something that a lot of people kind of miss. Our society right now doesn't have a lot of role models that are positive for people. I mean, a lot of times because of divorce, because of a poor educational system, young people don't often find mentors, people that they can really look up to. And many people, I think, coming to the occult community are seeking a teacher, they're seeking a mentor. A lot of them are seeking parental figures of one kind or another. And I think you need to be really clear about what you're looking for yourself and to develop a sort of sense of self-honesty about that. Because if you're really looking for a father figure or a mother figure or someone to sort of nurture you in a way that maybe you didn't get when you were a kid, you're not going to find that in the real occult community. You may find it in the fake occult community, in the nonsense occult community. You're not going to find that in the real occult community. And the more serious you are, the more serious you have to be about what exactly it is you're looking for. And I think people would be wise if they went back and looked at Crowley's own experiences with people like Oscar Eckenstein, who was not an occultist. He was just a smart guy that Aleister Crowley met during his mountain climbing days, that Crowley happened to learn a lot from and who he regarded as one of his most important teachers. And essentially Crowley tells us, and people should look this up themselves, but he tells us a teacher is really anyone who knows how to do something you don't. So if I, for example, wanted to learn how to fix a carburetor on a 1965 Mustang, I would need to find a mechanic who was really good at fixing Mustangs from that period and knew how to fix a carburetor, change one out, and work on it. And that guy could be, someone who I totally disagreed with politically, who may have had, crazy attitudes about a host of different social and economic issues. But as long as he knew how to do this thing that I didn't know how to do, he would be my teacher, and I would respect him and listen to him and do what he told me to do and learn from him how to change the carburetor. And when we do occult stuff, we shouldn't really change our attitudes around from that. We're just looking for people who know how to do things we don't know how to do. And investing it with a lot of, emotional nonsense, I think only sort of confuses the issue. So in the end, what a lot of times people are looking for is someone who will nurture them and support them and tell them that they're good people. And in turn, the teachers are looking, or in quotes, I say that, ironically, the teachers are so-called teachers are looking for people to come and ratify their egos and tell them how great they are. And it becomes a sort of mutual reinforcing process, which has nothing to do with magic or real occultism. And this is why, you find people who are very defensive about their teachers and their schools and their lineages and this and that, who don't know anything. And the reason they don't know anything is they're not there to really learn anything. They're there to get this sort of emotional support and reinforcement and ego stroking and everything else. And I think that's disgusting.
Well, one of the interesting aspects about this is that section where they are competent to correct and advise. Well, that right there shows that there is an objective way to determine somebody's competence, and that you have to be able to judge whether or not that person is competent.
Right. You have to be able to tell whether or not the guy really knows how to fix the carburetor in the 1965 Mustang, or whether he doesn't, or whether she doesn't.
Well, and conversely, the teacher has to be able to judge the student to correct the student.
That's
and if
correct.
Somebody is saying, well, you can't judge me, who are you to make any determinations about this or that? Well, then they've already cut themselves off from somebody being able to help them.
That's correct. That is right. And again, it becomes more of this, as I keep saying, this emotional sort of parent figure or cult leader or person who's there to magically reinforce you as a good person, and it's less anything to do with can you move from point A to point B. And this is why I think it's really important often for teachers and students to not like each other all that much, or to be frustrated with each other on certain levels, because that way it takes it away from the personality of the person and back to the task at hand. I mean, the teacher who can get you, if you're trying to do yoga work, to samadhi, to help you get to samadhi faster than anything else, is the best teacher, regardless of whether they're complete slime or not. They could be horrible people on on moral or ethical levels and very offensive, but if they can get you to samadhi quickly, they're the best teacher for you. Whereas the really sweet, nice guy that everybody loves, who's giving and supportive and emotionally connected and progressive and liberal and loving, if he doesn't know anything about yoga, he's a terrible teacher. And this is what people in the community are completely missing. So you know, if you want to try to determine whether someone's a good teacher or not, focus on the thing you're trying to learn. Don't focus on these other issues, and be clear about what it is you're looking for.
Well, you also have to be very committed to that objective end.
Yes.
Because if you go in wanting a friend or a father figure or somebody, you know, to say great things about you, and they don't, if you're not committed to that, you're going to walk away, not have gained anything, and lost the potential for learning.
Right, and you're going to tell everybody, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, he's a jerk or whatever. Yeah. So I think that's really getting down on the same page with what you're really trying to do. That's the most essential issue. And again, I mean, I think people need to look at this in terms of the books they read and the material that they're looking at. Are they looking at things that are just going to reinforce them and make them feel good about themselves, or are they going to look at things that really challenge them and may irritate them and make them unhappy on a certain level? And, you know, a lot of times the teachers that we've had in life who have not put up with our crap and have been very, very tough have been the best teachers and the people we've learned the most from. And the teachers, you know, that we like, that we have this this love and affection for, but who really, you know, didn't really push us, those are not the teachers that we want. And again, I mean, I think that, you know, people have to be very clear about what they're really after here. And a lot of times people aren't. I mean, a lot of times the people in the occult community are lying to themselves about what their real motivations are and what they're really after, what they're really seeking. So you're not going to get anywhere if you're lying to yourself about it to begin with.
And so how do you think people should evaluate the worthiness of their teachers?
Well, I think they need to find people who can do things they can't do. And one of the scariest things in the occult community, I think, one of the most frightening aspects of it, is that there are a lot of people out there presenting themselves as teachers who really don't know how to do too much more than their most beginning student knows how to do. They haven't read a lot of the material, they haven't studied it deeply, they haven't done a lot of the practices. Maybe they're older, maybe they've been around the scene longer, but, you know, when it really comes to their experience and what they know how to do well, they're not really that much more advanced than their most, naive beginning student. So you need to find people who really impress you as being knowing how to do a lot of stuff, and not just talking a good game, but, you know, really showing it. You also have to look for, I think, people who are not seeking students, which is weird, because most of the time the people seeking students are just seeking a cult following to ratify their egos. And if you find teachers who basically tell you, screw you, go away, I don't have time for you, get out of here, that teacher, because they're very busy with their own work, may be the best teacher for you to find. And you have to prove to them that you're worthy of doing this. There's a wonderful Japanese film from the 50s about this kid who goes to a dojo to study judo, and the teacher tells him to take a hike to get lost, and every single day he comes back, and every single day the teacher tells him to leave, and one night he stands in the pond next to the school all night long to prove that he's really determined and wants to do it. And then after that, the teacher lets him in and starts training him. And I think that this is something people need to pay attention to, because if you go around aligning yourself with people who are looking for students, oftentimes those people, I mean, nearly all the time in my opinion, those people are looking for ego ratification, and they're looking for followers, but they don't really have anything to teach other than how to set up a little ego ratification cult with occult trappings around it. So find the people that are really involved in their task. I mean, if you go to a university, for example, and you want to study physics, you really go and find the teacher who's most involved with his physics experiments, who's at the very top of his game, and you pressure and bug that teacher to show them that you will help them with their work as an associate student, as a fellow experimenter, and they'll let you in and start training you. But if they're really busy, they're going to be busy with their thing. They're not going to be busy with making you feel good about yourself, or making up for the father that you never had, or making up for the fact that you have all these psychological problems. That's not what they're going to be interested in. They're interested in doing their physics experiment. So occult teachers are no different. Most of them are so busy doing their thing, they don't have time for students, especially the occult students who won't do any work. I mean, you and I have talked about this, but people in the occult community will not work. They won't read the books they're supposed to read. They won't do the exercises they're supposed to do. nowadays they won't even buy the books they're supposed to buy. You've run into this, haven't you?
Yes. Yes.
We tell people to read books, and they just look at us like, "What are you, crazy?" I mean, I had this one